So some of you may have seen Sundar and his colleagues' presentation at Google I/O a couple weeks ago.
I did the whole thing so that we have a lot to talk about.
I know. Thank you so much. I didn't have to do anything to prepare for this. Just watched Google I/O. To me, the big theme that you personally set out, and you introduced a bunch of products, but there was a theme running through it, and that was artificial intelligence, machine learning. And I think I heard you say, this is the next 10 years. This is the, you didn't exactly say it this way, but I did when I was writing about it, that, we've had smartphone, the smartphone has sort of been almost like a black hole. There's nothing bad about it, and it's certainly not dead, but a lot of the developer energy, a lot of the hardware makers' energy, everything has been poured into the smartphone market since around 2007. And now, as you can see from Mary's slides, it's kind of maturing, and we're on to AI. Is that how you see it?
I think it's a pretty good summary. I mean, for us, we definitely see a huge opportunity. We see it as an inflection point. We started feeling it about 3 to 4 years ago when what we call as deep neural nets, when we used it for voice recognition or computer vision, translation, we just saw significant step changes, right? We've been working on these things for a long, long time. Even very, very early on, we obviously, use training algorithms all the time. But the actual way in which machine learning can actually, do a much better job in many, many specific instances, that's been much more recent for us. So about maybe 3 to 4 years ago, we felt we were at an inflection point, and so it was a big shift internally. And so we've been focused ever since in terms of how do we bring all of that thoughtfully outside. And I think the opportunity to do it, mobile gives a great platform, great way to do it. It's a very different paradigm. People use it all the time. They use it when they are on the go. And so the bar is much higher. People expect you to help them instantly. So that's an inflection point.
And in noisy environments.
Yeah, there you go.
I thought you almost, I said this, so I'll better own it. I said that you sort of had a declaration of war, I thought. You not only said, and you did qualify, you did say it's very early days, and it will take a long time. And Jeff Bezos said something very similar. I think he said I said, is it the first inning? And he said, it may be the first guy at bat. It's that early. So you said that, but you did say it's AI, and we at Google can do it better than anyone else. Now, Apple has Siri, Microsoft has Cortana, Microsoft has bots, Facebook has, intelligent machine learning bots that it's doing. Obviously, Amazon has its Alexa platform. Why is Google going to be able to do this better?
First of all, we've been doing it for a lot longer. So when I look at the scale at which we do it today, either in terms of the raw computational power we apply to it, how many years we've been doing it, or if you benchmark it in terms of any quality metrics. So if you take, for example, any kind of conversational, conversations you have with Google, our ability to answer questions at scale, globally, in depth. For example, the ability to have a follow-on conversation.
Right.
Those are the areas where the difference really shows through. So we've been doing this for a long time. And for me, people have been asking questions to Google for a long time. And with voice, we saw the trend too. And today, I do think we've taken an order of magnitude higher number of queries compared to anyone else. And so it's both in terms of the usage today and the scale at which we do it.
So are you willing to say you're better than Apple, you're better than Amazon, you're better than Microsoft, and you're better than Facebook? At this, right now.
And first of all, these are phenomenal companies.
Yes,
You know.
yes, Sundar.
And
you're a good guy. Do not say that we're not. I know,
and
but
you know, this is more like, it's not like Game of Thrones. It's more like the NBA championships or something like that. You know,
I kind of think it's Westeros. I really think it's Westeros.
we are trying to bring.
I mean, I think that map of Westeros at the beginning of Game of Thrones is not unlike the one at the beginning of Silicon Valley.
I think of it more like we are all bringing electricity to Westeros, not necessarily try to kill each other. You know, hopefully not. There are no lives at stake. But you know, the point is well taken. You know, I think when it comes to machine learning and AI, the ability to bring that in a meaningful way to users, you know, I do think, you know, pretty proud of what we've accomplished. And it is still early days for all of us. And you know, we do a variety of benchmarking studies, so we generally feel we are ahead.
Are screens dead? I mean, if we're going to do this by voice, do we need screens?
You know, in some cases, yes. So, for example, you know, today, you know, when people get into their car, you know, people do talk to their cars, and you know, but the screen is convenient as well. You know, you would stop thinking about it as, I mean, I think we are in the phase of transitioning from computing being these physical devices and screens and how you think about them to you just expecting them to be there ambiently in context and just working for you. And I think that's a transition that's happening, and that's exciting. You know, screens aren't that expensive per se, right? You know, you take a really nice house and look at the amount it costs to put glass there versus, you know, actually putting screens, you know, or the cost could actually make sense. So screens in itself aren't that expensive. So wherever it makes sense and you need it to work for users, I think it'll get there. So I think of it much more as computing being available to assist you throughout whatever you're doing. So that's the way I think.
So it's more like Captain Picard. He's standing in front of a giant screen, but he ignores it. And he just says, computer, where's so-and-so? Or to give me such and such.
Yeah, you know, I think things like that, you know, are happening, you know, even today. You know, for example, when we put, you know, in cars which have Android Auto, you know, people actually speak to us very naturally. It surprises us sometimes. So, for example, all of us figure out how to call mom, right? And like, you know, we say that, but people say, call my sweetie. Like, they say that in the car, like, and we have to figure it out. Today we don't do that well, but these are the kinds of things.
When I say that, is the first thing, I know that if I say call my wife, most of these systems will say the very first time, well, who is your wife?
Yeah.
And then they'll remember it.
That's right. Yeah.
We hope they'll remember it. My sweetie could be various things. So what, how do you work that out?
It could be a daughter, for example.
My lovely daughter, yeah, my granddaughter, whatever.
You know, and I mean, this is, you know, I think part of it is, you know, when we talk about, this is why I talk about it as early days, understanding context is very, very hard, right? And I think as humans, we do a very, very good job of it. And, you know, computers are very, very good at certain things. But what's changing, and this is why a lot of us who work in this field are very excited in the last 2 to 3 years, is we now believe we can start doing the kinds of things which are much more intelligent and, you know, understanding context, understanding the situation, being able to understand who's asking it, what's appropriate, are there others listening to it. These are all important things, and I think computing is just beginning to address those things.
So I remember, you know, I come and see you, and I see other folks at Google, I don't know, once or twice a year, and a couple of years ago, I think it was, I went, and I think I met with you, but I also met with, like, your voice team in Google Now. You never really did a good job of branding the voice piece of Google Now, if you don't mind me saying so. And it just wasn't sort of it wasn't like there was a thing called Siri, there later was a thing called, you know, Cortana, but you didn't kind of have a name for it. You had a name for Google Now, but the voice and kind of conversation piece of it wasn't.
Part of it is, you know, for us, you know, we've thought of this as, you know, this should be different for each user. So in some ways, you know, our vision of this is we think of this as building each user their own individual Google. And, you know, I think how we answer and respond to a, I don't know, 10-year-old living in Indonesia versus like you asking a question, I think, you know, it's not, you know, not yet fully convinced it's one personality which works in all those situations. So we want this to be user-centric. And I think part of building a smarter system over time is to be able to understand users and be that assistant for them, be that friend for them. And I think it's going to take us time to figure this out. So part of
That's why you're not separately branding it, because you want it to be kind of an architecture that runs through a lot of
we
things.
think this will evolve over time, and it'll grow, it'll evolve, and there are many ways to approach it. I think we just don't want to constrain ourselves in any single way at such an early stage, and so we want to kind of see how it goes. We want to iterate our way through this.
So your voice folks at the time I was there a couple of years ago said to me, we've been working on this idea of remembering the state of the conversation. So you don't have to, so you can ask a follow-up question like a human does, and not have to repeat the domain you were talking about. And the example they used was, how many sheep are there in New Zealand? Right, I'm sure you know this because
You just talked about it in your podcast.
Yeah, right. I did. And they said, and Google came back with an answer, I don't remember what it was, 40 million sheep or something. And then the next question was, and who's the prime minister? Mm-hmm. And you didn't have to say the prime minister of New Zealand because it's sort of new. Is that just one, you did that for that sheep in New Zealand question and maybe a couple of others, or is that going to happen? Is that kind of thing everywhere now?
We call this, this is natural language processing, and
yeah, but everybody calls their thing natural language.
No, I'm saying the field is called natural language processing, not Google's. And so this is how well you can do that, ability to understand pronouns and this follow through. It's the sheep is one example, but there are many cases you can come back. You could have asked about movies, and the next day you can come back and say, hey, I want to get 4 tickets to those movies, and we want to be able to understand that, pick it up.
Oh, you remember over a whole day?
No, but those are the things we aspire to be able to do.
Oh, aspire.
Yeah, and so that's the deep work ahead. For me, an intelligent assistant should have true conversational understanding, right? So that you can have an ongoing two-way dialogue. And and that's a hard thing to do. And the way you and I are talking, we're picking up on conversations we've had before, and and I think we have long ways to go to get there. But that's the exciting part of it.
I know, but I want you to come when we next invite you, and don't send that Google Home box to interview. But,
I will be here.
Is this also? Are you kind of doing your own cannibalization of Google search as we have long understood it by doing this, rather than letting somebody else cannibalize it?
It's a natural evolution of it. The line is very fluid in terms of today people do come to Google and ask these kinds of things.
They type them still mostly.
They type them on our Android phones. On the Google app on the Android phones, 1 in 5 queries are voice in the U.S. now, right?
Right, but 4 and 5 are still typed.
Yeah, but the number is growing, right? And today there are, still, if you use voice, there are a lot of things you can reliably assume it'll pick it up and answer. And
but the thing is, they're doing these searches not just on Android phones. They're doing them on Windows. They're doing them on Mac. They're doing them on iPhones. They're doing, they're doing them everywhere. Google searches.
Yeah, of course.
So, but some people think that if these other AI assistants that are out there from your other companies have the possibility of eating into your search dominance. So I guess what I'm wondering is, are you saying, okay, something's going to replace this, and we want to be the ones that do it?
Yeah, we definitely. To me, it's a bit like how you have PC to mobile transitions of computing. It's still computers, the way you followed the advent of the PC industry, and at some point it transitioned to smartphones. You still see a bunch of people using PCs here, and so it's a combination of the two now. But computing overall expanded, right? And we see it the same way. People's need for information, we see it expanding, at a pretty phenomenal rate. And so people will come at it many different ways, and we want to be able to do it for them. So it's a natural evolution. I think there's a lot of growth ahead, so I don't necessarily see it as a zero-sum game yet, but it's an important inflection point, or at least it's the way we see it.
What makes you think you can do this Google Home hardware product better than Amazon has done Echo? You just heard Kara say she has a lovely relationship with Alexa. How are you going to break that? How are you going to get her off that?
Part of it is, I think, in the next 5 to 10 years, building a true conversational understanding and being able to have the dialogue, I think, is where we plan to differentiate. The hardware is just a manifestation of that. We want to help people use that to get things done. And so there's a lot of work ahead. I think either be it Amazon or anyone else, we are at the 1% stage of what we can do here in this space. And, I think, so I just feel it's very early days when I go back and look at things like, Google Maps wasn't the first Maps product to launch. Gmail wasn't the first email product to launch. Search itself, wasn't the first search product to come. So I think, you take a very long-term view and you invest and you bring your strengths to it. For us, if you distill down, Google does a lot of things, but if you peel away everything and you distill it, this is the heart of what we do. It's what we are about.
Privacy. There are people who feel a little creeped out about having an Amazon device listening all the time in their house. Aren't they going to feel really creeped out about having a Google device listening all the time in their house?
Today, every time we do important things, people ask us this question all the time. Users. So take photos for example, right? We did come last year. Our premise was that we could store all your photos and search and organize it for you, your lifetime's worth of photos, right? Users adopted phenomenally well. We searched through them and so on. So for me, the onus is, the bar is on us to give enough value that people trust us. Privacy is something we will actually, I think all the machine learning and the AI work we do will help us do privacy better too. A lot of times today it's hard to do privacies because we rely on a lot of manual heuristics and as to how to go give you settings and controls to do these things. And we're doing that better. Today, very soon you'll be able to come and just say your name to Google and we pop up your My Account settings and you can control all that. About 1 billion people have go through these settings just in the last year alone. But over time, we want to do even better. You should be able to tell Google, hey, maybe the last 4 hours, just take that off and go off the record. And maybe we are able to do those kinds of things. We did that when we built Chrome. You could use Chrome any way you want. You can switch to incognito mode if you want to. We are doing it the same with our messaging product. So we give users choice. And over time, I think we can get smarter at giving users sophisticated privacy controls, right? So I want to save every conversation I have with my daughter, for eternity, and because I want to be able to go back and look at it, etc. Some other conversations, I want it to be maybe with my general counsel at Google. I want it to be private, and and we want to be able to do those things, and we can be smarter about it over time. So,
let's switch to talk a little about Android. So, Android is phenomenally successful. I think Mary had a slide about this, but we didn't even need that slide. We know that most of the smartphones in the world are Android, not just by a small amount, but by a large amount. But I have observed that I saw some data just the other day, and this has been true, I think, for most years recently, that you really only have one hardware partner in the entire world which is both global and profitable and has the kind of budget to do the right kind of marketing and all that kind of stuff to go up against Apple or whoever else might come along, and that's Samsung. Is that a good thing? Is that a healthy situation? I mean, you have hundreds of people using Android, but only one of them is profitable and global. And
I've always felt a strong Samsung is important for Android. I think they drive the high end of computing on the Android side, so I've always felt that's actually very, very important to us. But Android is also, it's a very open ecosystem. The answer may not be a global one player answering it in every part of the world, right? And you've had great examples of many, many regional players in places like India and China, actually, and Indonesia, and I see this all the time, serve the needs of those markets very well. So
I get it, but are they profitable? Because my understanding was they're not.
In that context of, there are people who are reinvesting profits and stuff, but there are OEMs in India, there are, people, Huawei in China, et cetera, who are profitable in their segments, right? but they are conglomerates. They invest aggressively. They are doing things globally. But Android is an enabler. I don't think it's it's an Android thing per se as much as globally it's a very competitive marketplace. Smartphone industry, hardware industry, it's a very efficient industry, right? And and even Amazon, which sells devices, they base it on Android too. So I look at it and say Android is a large-scale open platform and an ecosystem.
They base it on Android, but they don't use your services.
That's right. But as an Android open platform, they do that, and we enable that as part of Android. That's what makes it possible.
So will you have next year a phone at least that is made by you? Where the whole thing is made by you?
We today do it as Nexus devices. That's a plan.
And not made by you.
They're not made by us, but we are investing more effort into them, and so you will see us put a lot more thought into our Nexus devices going forward, because and there are categories beyond phones which we are doing, like Google Home and Chromecast and so on. So I think we'll be opinionated where we need to be so that we push the category forward.
Let me unpack that for a second. You're doing other things that are yours.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, maybe you contract out the manufacturing, but basically it's yours, both the hardware and the software. You're going to put more thought into the Nexus phones. What does that mean? I mean,
so two things.
More thought. Doesn't that just lead you to make them?
It depends on...
Or at least one of them?
So for example, today when we ship Nexus phones, we just ship stock Android on Nexus phones, right?
Right.
You will see us actually, thoughtfully add more features on top of Android on Nexus phones. So there's a lot of software innovation to be had as an example of it. We could be more opinionated about the design of the phones, even though we are working with the OEM to do it. So those are all the kinds of evolutions you'll see.
But you're not, does that mean you're not going to make your own phones?
No, not as our plan is still to work with OEMs to make phones, yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm going to squeeze in one more question before we go to the folks. So if you have questions, start lining up the mics. China. I read somewhere recently that you said something about rethinking maybe being in China. What does that mean?
It's a bit of a nuance today. We are in China. We have employees there. We support advertisers. So there are many Chinese developers who work on Android. We provide advertising and so on. Google Search is not there in China, but we've always been, at least personally for me, I care about serving users globally in every corner. I've always thought Google is for everyone, and that applies to China too. So where possible, we want to be in China serving Chinese users. And so, we aspire to do that with things like Google Play, where we can get our services working. For example, for advertisers, we do it today. We provide analytics, we help them advertise and reach users outside of China and so on. So, we're being thoughtful about it, but definitely I would like to see more of it.
Do you imagine going back in their full blast with Google Search, some negotiation with the government that would allow you to do that?
I think if you can do it in a right and thoughtful way, we are always open to it, and so it depends on the situation, but we are definitely open to it.
Okay. Yes, over here.
Hey, Sundar, Mark Mahaney. I wanted to ask kind of a 3 to 5 year question. I know you focus primarily on the user experience and then monetization comes later, but you've got a number of very large assets that may be under-monetized. And if you think about Google Play, Google Maps, which you just announced some new ad formats for in the last week, and YouTube, which one of those do you think is most under-monetized today, and what would be the strategy over the next 3 to 5 years to better monetize it?
Video is such a profound shift, and I think video cuts through everything we do. Users increasingly want information in the context of video. So I see it as a paradigm shift, and so for me, very bullish on YouTube long term. Maps is turning out to be, be it self-driving cars or just where all we are using maps today. I think the use cases continue to grow. Today, a lot of our searches to Google are local in nature, right? Big, especially in the context of mobile. and Maps plays a huge role. So we do think about it that way. But we are open to trying out new things across Waze and Google Maps. We are beginning to experiment with monetization, and you'll see us do more there.
Stephen?
Hi, Sundar.
Yes,
So messaging seems to be the ascendant paradigm in mobile now, and as we get more and more of these, like a lot of them aren't open to communications unless both parties are on it, and we're using them for bots for other communication. It seems to me that in order to have something opened up, Android, with its huge market share, is like the one place that could help enable that. Instead, at I/O, you introduced a bunch of new messaging systems. We have difficulty even figuring out where Google is on its multiple messaging systems. Can you tell us how you think about messaging and the question of eventual interoperability and ways to make it clearer and easier for people to use?
No, it's a very, very good question. At a platform level, at an Android level, we call it RCS, and it's an evolution of SMS. So we are working with carriers to evolve the platform so that you have an interoperable messaging standard, right? And we would love to support it, and we do that. But it's not a Google service. That's an open platform level thing. And so we are careful about distinguishing between what we build as a Google service and what we build in the Android platform. I would love to see messaging services be more interoperable. I think I would love to see users on iOS be able to message users on Android and vice versa. I think it benefits both of us. So these are all, I think, hopefully we as an industry head in that direction. And so maybe, I'm making an ask here. So, to the extent, the big companies can work together, I think it's good for everyone. So I would like to see more of that too.
Okay.
I wanted to talk about YouTube, actually. I work at CNBC, digital media right now, video is everything, it's exploding. And you have sort of at the high end, you have Amazon and Netflix, and on the other side, you have Facebook and you have Snapchat exploding and media companies sort of throwing themselves at those platforms. I feel like YouTube has maybe lost a little momentum or buzz in that regard. So I'm curious, how personally interested are you in YouTube versus AI and bots and Android and all these other things you have on your plate? And what do you see as the future for YouTube? And do you think maybe this should be something that's broken out in Alphabet and is as a standalone as opposed to being part of Google?
We see YouTube very much as part of Google. As I said, the transition to video cuts across everything we do. We don't feel any loss of momentum. Our numbers are exceptionally strong, and we are doing it across all ends of spectrum. So for YouTube, we are seeing tremendous growth in terms of how users are engaging it, and we are working hard to connect users and creators in better and better ways. So just a few weeks ago in YouTube, we launched native sharing and native commenting so that artists can engage with users. We are focused on premium content. We are creating our own shows. We'll probably have, through the course of this year, maybe 20 original shows produced for YouTube. We give it through YouTube Red. So we are investing a lot in YouTube, and we will apply machine learning and AI in the context of YouTube as well. It's going to be, to Mark's earlier question, I see YouTube as a big future growth engine for Google as a whole, and so it's a very, very key area for us.
Hi, I'm Rosa. I would like to ask you two questions. First is, what does the Java and Sun result means for the Android ecosystem? And the other question is related also to nearly YouTube is, during I/O we discovered Daydream. So what can we expect in that platform, and if you're going to fight with Oculus or just an evolution of cardboard? Thank you.
On the first one, look, I think Google would have been fine in all circumstances, but I think it was a hugely important victory for open source software, for many people in this room, and people who rely on open source software and want to use APIs freely. So I take it as a important victory for that, and I'm glad it worked out that way. And so I think it has a lot of implications, and I think it was an important ruling. On Daydream, just like Daydream to us is building an ecosystem again to enable many people around the world to build VR well. And to do VR well, you need to build great hardware, you need a great operating system, you need apps and services, you need to be able to think about headsets, controllers, and so on. So just like we did with Android in its early days, for us, Daydream is an end-to-end way by which we think about how do we create a big ecosystem around VR, and and these things take time to do, and so we are thoughtfully and slowly building it step by step.
Okay, last question, Don Graham.
I'm a Google shareholder, but a nervous one, and the thing that makes me nervous is the European Union. IBM and Microsoft were fundamentally changed by US antitrust suits. How can you resolve the EU's complaints without fundamentally changing the direction of Google's business?
We are engaging thoughtfully with them, and I think there are many areas in which they have important questions. We view it as a thoughtful process. That's how we have seen it. It plays out sensationally in the press, but they are looking at it thoughtfully. We are responding thoughtfully, and I think I'm comfortable that the framework will allow for us to work it out through. At the end of the day, part of the reason we are in this position, it's a position we feel fortunate to be in. We are very, very popular, and users a lot, and that's the context in which all these questions get asked. And I think these are fair questions, and the process is thoughtful as far as personally I'm engaged on it, and I think most of the company is not consumed by it, and I think maybe that's the difference. We don't approach it that way. We don't want the whole management team and the company to think about it, but we have a set of thoughtful people working with them, and I think the right outcomes will emerge.
Well, Sundar, thank you so much.
All right, thanks, Walt. Thank you.